This is Gareth Jones On Speed 74A, a photo-enhanced version of episode 74. The pictures may be viewed by playing this podcast in Apple QuickTime, iTunes, or on your iPod. All images are used with the kind permission of the owner or a copyright Whizbang TV Limited.
Bernie Eccleston, thank you for talking to Gareth Jones On Speed.
Oh, you're welcome, darling. But make it quick, the clock's ticking.
Well, I was hoping you could run through your vision of F1 over the next few years.
Well, apart from reducing the power of the cars, we're introducing standard components and chassis. And we're reducing the car's reliance on aerodynamics to give us a bit more, overtaking. And as of next year, slick tyres are back.
Is that the complete package?
Well, there is, of course, my plan to follow the cash with more Grand Prix in new markets in the East. And I'll introduce a medal system for the 3 highest placed finishers.
Ah, to help overtaking.
No, it's just that as Max has ripped off most of the new F1 ideas from A1 GP, I thought I should too. Now clear off with your podcast. I've got money to earn.
Gareth Jones On Speed!
This is all clothes.
Welcome to Gareth Jones On Speed, and in the grand tradition of a television programme I presented for 16 years, we're going to play show and tell, because How To is very much a show and tell show where you sort of turn up and show people something and tell them about it. So we're going to play show and tell with my usual co-host of the show, Zog. Say hello, Zog.
Hello there.
And Richard Porter. Say hello, Richard Porter.
Hello.
I'm going to find out, Richard, what it is you've got to show and tell. Can you give us some sort of cryptic clue as to what it is without telling us too much first?
Like a mime or something?
Yeah,
no. It's audio, isn't it?
This is not that Unistubs show. What was it
It's something that I've made of sorts,
called?
and it took me a long time to make it.
Oh,
I almost went mad doing it.
that's intriguing. That's coming in part 3 of Gareth Jones On Speed today. But for now, part 1, Zog, what have you brought for us to see today?
I think you're going to like this. I really think you will. When I saw this the other day, this just blew me away because I think, we've all followed with a certain amount of interest the various attempts that people have made to come up with a flying car. That's one of the great technological dreams, I think, of the late 20th century, a flying car.
Yeah.
And, people have come up with one or two semi-practical things, but nothing that's really taken off, as it were. Nothing that's really, cheap enough, easy enough, reliable enough, but a British guy's cracked it. It's one of those beautiful sort of bits of approaching the problem from a slightly different angle. Rather than do what one company's been trying to do and cram, 8 little turbofans into a Ferrari 599?
Yes. Well, it's not
insane.
a Ferrari 599, it's just a replica of it, and he's about to get sued to soddery, I would imagine.
Yeah, it would cost $500,000 if he ever built it, which he clearly won't. The Moller Sky car, which they've been working on,
been done in association with Dr. Moller, Mr. Moller. Is he a doctor?
I don't know, but he has spent about $100 million on 40 years trying to make a flying car, and he's come up with with things that do fly, but nothing that's going to production people are using. Anyway,
what's the solution? Yeah.
Here's the solution. A British paramotor manufacturer realised that the lift that you get off these big paragliders now is sufficient, that you can just stick a car under it. And so what he's done is he's basically slung a dune buggy underneath a paraglider sail, and voila, you've got a flying car.
So it's
cheap. 100,000 or so is what it's cost them to develop so far. And in January next year, they're going to fly from London to Timbuktu.
Wow.
Well, hang on a minute.
And here is a picture of it.
How do you control it?
You got a picture of it? Oh, great.
Let me have a look at this.
So it's a non-rigid inflatable sail.
Yeah, if we can just describe...
Is that real? Because he's flying past the Gherkin in central London.
I think we can safely assume we should just describe what we should just... That is Photoshop. The Gherkin is definitely Photoshopped in there. I think we can safely say that. But what's in front of it is real, and it does fly, and it's working. And we should go to this. This is one of those big directional parachutes, if you like. The wing parachutes that you can kind of steer. And if you sling yourself under this thing and you strap a motor to your back, you can fly. And this is exactly that thing, except that instead of just strapping a motor to your back, you're sort of strapping yourself into a dune buggy with a motor that blows out the back and pushes you along, and the sail, in sort of kite parachute fashion, enables you to fly. It's simple, it's cheap, it works. I think it's brilliant.
One of the great problems with Sky Cars, and they've been trying to make flying cars since the 1950s, I know there were a number of relatively successful American designs, was that you'd have a car which you then drive into a hangar and plug on a huge pair of wings, and they'd
Yeah.
have to be really huge to create enough lift to lift the
To lift
mass
a heavy
of
car.
the car.
Yeah.
Here, they've solved the problem by, first of all, choosing a really lightweight car. Like you said, it's a
Exactly,
kind of a
yep.
dune or beach buggy or kind of off-road buggy, a Baja buggy, perhaps you might even say.
Yeah.
But and the wing, being non-rigid, first of all, is about a third
very,
of the
very
weight.
light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the bonus, you don't need a hanger to keep it in. I bet that will fold up and fit in the back of even that tiny dune buggy.
Yeah,
Possibly
quite
while
likely.
you're flying.
Well,
I don't know. That doesn't look
you don't look like you're too
very
keen to step into that particular.
safe
I'd do it.
I'd give it.
me.
I'd give it a go. Yeah.
I'd do it.
All right, well, I'll wave to you.
On the way
I don't
down.
know. No, I'd love to have a go in that kind of thing, but I just like to see it not photoshopped onto the skyline of London.
That's not reassuring. No,
It's
no,
not.
And it's
actually,
British. That's the amazing thing, is that it's British. It's a
Yeah.
bit too bonkers to be British, isn't it?
I don't know. I think it's one of those, sort of. I think it's one of those wonderful sort of British
proud
boffinish.
heritage of bonkers engineering. I mean,
Absolutely.
let's be honest.
The Willis
And
autogyro.
bonkers engineering that works.
Christopher Cockerell,
Barnes
I mean,
Wallace
they're
and
fairly bonkers. The
Exactly.
hovercraft is a great example of British engineering because ultimately it's sort of brilliant, but
quite silly.
quite silly. That's
Yeah.
exactly
Silly,
it. It's
yeah.
quite silly. And I like that. That's
Yeah.
good. I mean, I suppose in a way, Frank Whittle, when they went, what? You're going to get rid of the
crazy.
propeller?
Yeah, no,
Just
look-
ignite fuel into it. What are you talking about, you mentalist? And then he obviously
Yeah,
revolutionised the
well,
world.
and sort of we I mean Britain to some extent lost a lead in sort of jet engine technology because we didn't believe in it enough, really. Isn't
Exactly.
It? Okay.
Yes.
Do you know the name of the company who are making that Zog?
Parajet
I enjoy
Skycar.
silly.
Parajet
However,
is the
I don't
company.
enjoy silly when I'm suspended 1,000 feet over central London.
Let me give you some little
Wow,
facts
this
here. We've got,
engineering is really silly. Look, we're plummeting towards the O.
takeoff speed 60 kilometres per hour, top speed of 110 kilometres per hour.
Yeah.
That'll be in the air.
Maximum
Range
altitude?
of 300 kilometres.
Read that next bit.
Maximum altitude 15,000 feet.
15,000 feet.
You wouldn't need breathing gear at that altitude. You'd be very cold.
You'd
Need a good heater in
bloody
the car.
good anorak. Well, it hasn't got a heater. It's a rage buggy or something.
You don't
need a
sleep too
really, really big puffer jacket.
Yeah, it would be certainly cold up there. Cruising altitude
mode.
2,000 to 3,000
Road
feet,
mode,
though.
let's have a look.
Yeah, and then when you're driving, it's independent.
So is this like a little
rear-wheel
race, mate, is it?
drive.
0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's. I believe it's got a continuously variable transmission and a Yamaha motorcycle engine. I think.
Keep it light.
On the road, it looks like a dune buggy with a big propeller stuck on the back, which actually is going back to one or two really early car
Yes,
designs.
yeah, the aero
Yeah,
car.
Yeah.
The aero car. What was it called? I saw it recently. I was in Bewley, and they've got one there, and even my boys were impressed with that one.
Yeah, it's ace.
yeah.
It only died off because of the Euro NCAP pedestrian regulation.
Thank you very much indeed.
But you're sceptical, Richard, about the practicality of this thing. We will find out in January because they're going to fly this thing all the way to Timbuktu from London.
They're starting from London?
Starting from London.
Right,
Yeah,
let's find out when and we'll go there.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
I
Let's
tell
do
you
that.
what.
Deal.
I tell you what. If they're flying from London, they're flying from the city, right? We're going to find about it pretty soon. If that sail loses structural integrity, if it invaginates, if it loses some of its
If
air
it
inside,
what?
invaginates,
That's-
turns
you made
inside
that up.
out. No,
You are
turns
making
inside out. Invaginates, turns inside out. That's where the word vagina comes from.
Okay,
Yeah, so if that sail invaginates,
we were prepared to just let that remain unsaid, but you had to go and say it.
we're going to get a dune buggy through the roof of this house in North London, so we will be the first to know about it. You'll be the first to hear about it.
Car of the Year, the Oscars, BBC Sports Personality of the Year, McDonald's Employee of the Month. Now, get ready for the big one.
The Gareth Jones On Speed Awards 2008.
The only podcast-based motoring awards where not only do you pick the winners, but you choose the category too. So, got any suggestions? Cigarette Lighter of the Year. Motorsport Disappointment of the Year. Best use of the colour yellow in an interior trim. Send your nominations and category suggestions to awards@garethjones.tv.
The Gareth Jones On Speed Awards 2008.
Gareth Jones On Speed, more innovative than the Shanghai Automotive Corporation and a lot less Chinese.
We're playing show and tell on Gareth Jones On Speed today. We've heard about Zog's flying car. Now it's Richard's turn to show and tell. Richard, what is it that, what did you say, took you ages to do and caused you some pain or something?
Well, yeah, it's called The Big Book of Top Gear. And
yes.
It's a book about Top Gear.
Which you wrote, but you're not credited for.
I'm not, although if you go on Amazon, I am credited for, due to presumably an administrative error on the part of the publishers. They've accidentally given away the fact that I wrote it, which is nice.
Hooray.
Basically, it's like an annual, but it's...
It's page after page of Top Gear goodness, basically.
I'm going to put that on the cover of the reprint.
I tell you what, it's not what you might expect, because I saw this, we're looking at copies now, but I saw this when I was around Richard's the other week. Do you know what it reminds me of? The Monty Python Papa Bock.
That's the nicest thing you could possibly say about it, because that's what I was trying to do in a sort of shabby Top Gear way. But
I don't think this is a cash-in.
In the layout,
I think this takes you somewhere, this book. I really mean that, Richard. I think it takes you somewhere beyond Top Gear. It adds,
if enough people
adds
buy it,
value.
it'll take me to the Bahamas. But that's
there you go. You're not on a residual deal. You want to buy out, or you want a residual deal? You get a residual deal. You get a deal. He really is. Excellent. Go on, listen. Make this boy wealthy. Buy loads of copies. No, it really is good.
It won't. I heard, do you know the comedian Stuart Lee, who wrote or co-wrote Jerry Springer the Opera? And
the comedian Stuart Lee, who lives just on that road about 100 yards up there.
Does he?
Yeah.
That would explain
Yeah, I crashed into him once.
What, literally?
Yeah, in my Lancia.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, I crashed into his Mini that was parked on. He lives just on. I can't say the name of the road. That would be saying too much. But
I think I saw him coming out of the door
really
down there a few months ago, so that would explain why
he
lives
coming out of the door.
Your neighbourhood is sort of like Stella Street on the telly. In fact, almost weirdly so, because Phil Cornwell is around the corner.
Phil Cornwell is down there.
It's really bizarre. No, Stuart Lee said something fantastic when he wrote Jerry Springer the Opera, which was a huge hit in London, and then I think toured around the world, and a lot of people apparently
Make it
said
with
to him,
Christians, apparently.
Yes. He said people kept saying to him, well, you must be making a fortune off this. And he went, not really, no. I mean, people say, oh, it must be a life-changing amount of money. And he went, actually, it's not. It's a car-changing amount of money. It's always a perfect way to sum it up. So suffice to say, if this book sells well, it won't be a car-changing amount of money. It'll be like a clothes-changing amount of money. I'll get a new Westfield shopping centre in West London and buy some trousers.
A really expensive suit.
But anyway, that's not the point. I didn't do it for the money. I did it because it seemed like a good thing to do, and because
you put a lot of work into it.
Top Gear is quite successful at the moment, and is on the telly a lot. And the presenters are kind of too busy doing stuff and writing their own books. So I pitched in and wrote this, and
it's got some really useful Stigisms in here. For instance, how to speak all the various languages that Stig has been learning whilst driving around the Top Gear test track, such as this one, which is Spanish. Ayuda, soy seguido por un asno misterioso, which is help, I'm being followed by a mysterious donkey. But useful stuff. Bonkers.
Handy,
yes. Top Gear on ice with a very embarrassing picture of Richard Hammond in skater's outfit. He didn't actually do that. That's Photoshop, isn't it?
There's a lot of Photoshop in it.
And very good use of Photoshop.
It's one of the things why I almost went mad, because I spent quite a lot of time writing it, and then a lot of time with a design agency, desperately working through all the design details to get them right. So, hello, Martin, if you're listening. Who did a lot of hard work on it.
It is very well
great
designed.
design work in this.
Yeah, that wasn't me. That was someone else.
There's been a lot of work
someone else.
into it. I do like the James May map of the world.
That was my favourite.
I'm
when
very
we looked
proud
at
of
that. Yeah.
The thing that I'm most proud about that is that one person who likes that more than anyone is James May. Who was, because I thought he might be a bit cross about it, that I suggested that he thinks, for example, that Brazil
Kent
is
is
called
southern...
South Mexico, and he
next to West Mexico.
He actually, sorry, it sounds like I'm just blowing my own trumpet in an appalling way, but when I showed that to James, he laughed so much a bit of tea came out of his nose. So.
Do you know what I like most about the James May map of the world? Wales appears on it 3 times. Thank you, Richard.
The publisher, I think it was 4 times, and the publisher rang
Is it
me
4
up
times?
because they were proofing this, and they rang up and they went,
America.
oh, by the way, that map of the world is a bit of a mistake. Oh, why, what? And I thought they were going to go, oh, yeah, well, you've labelled India wrong. I was like, no, everything's labelled wrong. But no, they went, yeah, Wales is on it 4 times. And I went, no, that's deliberate.
That's the only thing you can find wrong with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wales
It's all
on it 3
wrong.
times.
The worst thing is I had to double check that
China's
some of them weren't actually not accidentally correct, because once you get round sort of like the really fiddly countries in Africa, because there's a lot of them, I was suddenly thinking, oh, maybe that is the Upper Volta.
I'm pretty sure that Surrey isn't on the Black Sea for a start.
Well, you say that, but
I'm not sure. I'm fairly confident. Not 100% sure. But,
anyway,
It's on the Black Sea. I'm quite fond of the Biggles May Flies Off, a boy's own adventure involving a Griffon engine Spitfire Mark 24 and some absolutely spot-on drawings of the Top Gear team. And the whole thing is in a comic book style. They captured it exactly, and they've all got flying jackets.
Can I just ask, did Jeremy Clarkson ask the artist to make him look younger in this frame?
He didn't, but I'm sure he's delighted by it.
And is Clarkson actually only the same height as Richard?
That's perspective there.
I think you could be genuinely proud of this.
I am very proud of it. It's not the best book in the world. It's the kind of book you'd leave by the loo. But I did work very, very hard on it. I sound like I'm justifying my homework now, but I worked very, very hard on it, and I think it feels like a book about Top Gear. I know that sounds daft, but if you like Top Gear on the telly because it's just silly and stupid and it makes lots of crass jokes, then basically it's a book that's silly and stupid and is full of crass jokes, and that's the programme in book form, I suppose.
And what Gareth says about the Monty Python book comparison is a very good one. In it's building on a lot of the show's content. So you have stuff that is very directly based on stuff in the show, and then things that go off on tangent after tangent after tangent. Yeah. And if you're a fan of the show, you will love this book.
And 4,000 points for the index, which lists a whole bunch of things which are not in the book.
That's personally, that's my favourite bit, just because I thought it might confuse and irritate people a little bit.
Badgers, page 34, 65, 103, 105, 112, 114 and 124.
Oh, I just found a picture of Jackie Stewart holding a fish.
There you go.
That's a real photo. That's not a Photoshop.
How much does that book retail for, Rich? Do you know?
God, I don't know. $12.99, I think.
$12.99?
It's like £6 on Amazon. So
right.
Where it's actually number 3 in the Amazon chart of overall books at the moment, behind Barack Obama. So yes, I can be behind him in the charts, which is really nice. So yes, it is. It's available from all good bookshops and also from Amazon, which is a good bookshop on the internet. I have nothing more to say. I'm embarrassed to be flogging my wares like a cheap prostitute.
You can be proud of your wares.
It's a fine piece of work.
Over its first 4 series, Gareth Jones On Speed has brought you ridiculous parodies of music by U2, The Cure,
Our expressions are glum, we miss out on the fun because goths don't try.
The Ramones,
Sheena is a race car fan, a rock and roll race car fan. Sheena is a race car fan, on her way to a driving bed.
and Mark Bolan.
Oh, my mini club mome's good for all the girls and boys. I bought a mini club mome, 'cause it's good for my boys.
But we're not done yet. Coming soon, we take the mickey out of
Where'd you try to find a way if you please? I'm fueling Nick's Ferraris.
Pink Floyd, The Stranglers,
I ditch my devotion to Robert Dorboss. No more motor racing heroes anymore. No more motor racing heroes anymore.
and
All my mates go roving, but I have to admit I'm a bit of a git. For the last 12 months I've been saving my Spondylix to go on a much better bash. A trip to Le Mans doesn't last that long and it doesn't use all of me cash.
The Streets.
Wipe your brow, pal, and forget having showers. You're going to a race, mate, that's great, and lasts for 24 hours.
Gareth Jones On Speed Season 5. Dafter than a Tato Nano with a V10 turbo diesel. Coming to an iPod near you in 2010.
Gareth Jones On Speed! We like cars, but we like music too!
I wish I could say I've saved the best show and tell till last, but I don't think I can. It's going to be very hard to match a flying car and a book, probably going to be one of Britain's top-selling books this Christmas, written by a man who's standing in this room, with a review of 2.5 cars driven on the Iberian Peninsula. It's going to be hard to match that, really. But this is my show and tell. I have been driving some new Renaults recently. Twice I flew to the Iberian Peninsula. I went to...
2.5 cars?
Yeah, 2.5 cars.
How do you drive half a car?
Well, first of all, I went to Portugal to drive the new Renault Laguna Coupe GT, which is quite a handsome coupe. It's not beautiful. Right.
It's not sort of 406.
No, it's not 406.
I've seen one. I've seen one in the flesh, and I thought it was a pleasant-looking car, but the pictures flatter it.
It's a cuter car in the flesh than it is in the pictures. The pictures make it look sort of lean and elegant.
Yes.
In the flesh, it looks more like a coupe by Fiat.
Yes.
Did you see what I did there?
Yes.
I said the coupe by Fiat because that's what it was
And
called.
I know what you mean.
As opposed
because
to Fiat Coupe.
Which was a Bangle car, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it was.
It was a Bangle car. Suddenly
That's
remembered
a car
that.
designed by Chris Bangle as opposed to one driven by
A member of Susanna Hoffs.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's taller and narrower
Yeah, that's right.
than you expect.
Yeah, with the slightly bug-eyed headlamps thing going on from the back, and this is the Laguna Coupe's best angle. The back, it really does suggest an Aston Martin, which is no bad thing when you're Renault. And it was a great drive. I drove 2 versions of the car over 2 days. There's a 3.5 litre V6, and then there's this new 3.5 litre V6 turbo diesel engine, which is a version of the Renault-Nissan Alliance engine, which they get from the Nissan, I nearly said Datsun, Nissan 350Z or Z, if you like that, which is a tremendous engine. And it made a great noise. I think it was A-sharp. I swear, blasting down the...
That would be a little more than 440 hertz then?
A-sharp, I reckon.
Maybe.
I wish I had my guitar tuner with me. Actually, I did have my recorder with me. I should have recorded it. There's a tuner built into the recorder. I could have done that. It made a great noise, but it's slightly detuned from the Nissan 350Z because it doesn't need to be as raughty. It's a GT, not a racer, you know. But the best thing about it is that it's like the old Prelude and the old... Was it the Mazda 626? It had 4-wheel steer.
626, yeah.
626. It had 4-wheel steering. This new...
Active 4-wheel steering.
Active 4-wheel steering, yeah, not passive but active. It has a single actuator on the rear with a bar connecting the 2 rear wheels, and below 40 kilometres per hour it moves in the opposite direction to the front wheel steer, and above 40 it moves in the same direction. So you get, ooh, this is really good at going around car parks, and you get, ooh, that was a bit strange, changing lanes on the Portuguese equivalent of an autostrada, whatever they call it.
But basically more stable in changing lanes when you suddenly need to jink to avoid something.
Lane changing. The front wheels turn right. The rear wheels also turn right. That's your lane changing. They go in the same way.
Right, yes, that would make sense.
Think about the extreme
Crabs.
case where if you're driving really, say you're doing 150 miles an hour and you do that jink and your rear wheels suddenly point the other way to
more
front wheels,
than you expect.
That's really bad news.
Yeah, that's true. Because I thought those old Honda systems at very low speed, like parking, they would move in if you like, in parallel because... You want to crab into a...
That would be a slightly different thing.
If you turn in circle, I think.
But that's only really useful if you kind of really crank the wheels round. If you crank them around 90 degrees and you just sort of slide in sideways.
Yeah, that is right, isn't it? Yes.
But it's got a slightly shorter
Now my
wheelbase.
brain hurts. I'm trying to think.
7 centimetres shorter than the Laguna Saloon, which is a really dull-looking car. I don't think...
7 centimetres?
Yeah.
That's not very
really.
much, is
No,
it?
it isn't.
Do you think it was worth it?
3 thumbs.
Do you think it was worth it? They've had to sort of re-engineer the floor pan for
They
7
talked about
centimetres.
this as a compromised repackaging to give a benefit from the appearance of the car. That's how they said it. Compromised repackaging.
I'll take their word for it.
And I sat in the back and I drove it. It was a great drive. That was the best thing about that car. The diesel engine was an absolute cracker, and it really did handle. Honestly, it took a bit of getting used to. It just behaves differently to anything I've ever driven before.
If at speed the back wheels are moving the same direction as the front wheels,
Yeah, only about 4 degrees.
it's going to feel like it's
Ahead of you.
oversteering a little bit.
Yeah, you turn in, it's like the back end's
a
already
minute
there.
amount, but the back end is going to be stepping out further than
That's
it would
right.
if the tyres were absolutely...
That's right. It's
fixed.
curious. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. But once I got used to it, and it didn't take that long, an hour to get used to it, it was a really great drive. So I like the Laguna. Here's the thing, though, right? Renault don't sell cars in America and haven't sold cars in America for, 20 years?
20 years.
Yeah.
Or so, yeah.
If ever they built a car to take them back into America. This is it. You know, it's got a Nissan engine. It's got a V6 engine. It's a big coupe that looks a little like a Honda or, if you like, an Acura coupe.
I can see its looks working in the American market.
Well, here's the problem,
a lot
though,
more
because
than
unfortunately,
maybe a lot of
Acura and Lexus and whoever else are already there doing it.
Yeah, that's right. There's no room for this.
So why? And also because I think most Americans, if they've even heard of Renault, you say Renault and they say Le Car, which was what they called the Renault 5, the old Renault 5 with the lengthways engine, which had a terrible reputation in the States. And then latterly they hooked up with AMC and they did the Renault 9 and the Renault 21 over the Alliance. Yeah. Utterly terrible.
But if ever Renault needed to save their reputation and go back into America, this is the car. This would do it.
I don't think they need to, because the thing is now they're essentially the same company as Nissan, and Nissan are doing fairly good business in the US, and Infiniti has kind of established itself there, and Nissan are selling plenty of cars there, and I can't remember, there's something like every 2 or 3 days they sell as many Sentras or whatever the really basic Nissan is as they're going to sell GTRs there in a year. You know, they sell, which is more an indication of just how many white bread saloons they sell there. They just keep on pushing units out. Also, Renault are big in South America. So, you know, they've got South America, leave North America to Nissan. That's fine. You know,
but surely the fact that Nissan are doing well in North America doesn't mean that they wouldn't want to also sell Renaults there. Because it's like the old theory that if you're selling washing powder, you know, you may as well just create another brand, essentially of the same washing powder, so that if somebody isn't buying your first product, rather than going to one of your competitors, you know, they may buy your sort of B company.
Okay, so I've drove 2.5 cars. So after my trip to Portugal to drive the Laguna GT Coupe, and my point is that this is the car to take them into America, where I think it would probably sell. But let's face it, who's going to buy a big Renault Coupe in Europe? I don't think anyone is. I really don't think anyone's going to buy it. No. Anyone at all. It's a great car. No one's going to buy it. Prove me wrong. Okay, the other 1.5 cars I drove, having come back from Portugal, I then flew to Spain to drive the new Megane in sort of, well, it's not really 2 versions, it's 1.5 versions, because there's the Megane hatch, which is a 5-door hatch, and then there's what they call the Megane Coupe, which used to be the 3-door hatch. But it's more of a coupe, and what they're trying to do is sell the 3-door as a car that would sell to people who might buy, say, the Scirocco or the Volvo C30 or even, you know, BMW 3 Series. It's a coupe, and it looks ace. Have you seen it? Have you seen pictures of it?
Yeah.
In the flesh, it's a... What's the French word for bitch?
Biche.
Yeah, I'll do. Yeah. It is, honestly, the little Megane coupe, the 3 doors, smashing. Oh, it's a little cheeky little thing.
I've just realised it might be La Chien Femme.
That'll do. But the Megane hatch, it's just a Honda Civic 5-door, the previous generation.
What I noticed about the Megane 3-door is that it has these gopping great sorts of what look like rubber strips down the bottom of the doors and the sides. Like
kind of like
Discovery,
one of those ruggedized.
That's a 4x4 and this isn't. And it just, they look ugly and unnecessary.
They've gone to a lot of detail work on the coupe to differentiate it from the Megane hatch. They've got these sort of neo-brushed aluminium inserts around the air intakes below the bumper at the front end to make it look different. And it's got really tiny rear... It's this fashion for really tiny rear windows these days.
Yeah,
so if you're sitting in the back, you're just peeking out. But I didn't
Speaking of which, I don't know whether you've seen, you know the Fiat Bravo?
Yeah.
And there's a guy lives around the corner from me who's clearly bought one. I don't know him.
They look great in orange. They look fab in orange.
Yeah, this is a red one. But I didn't notice this on this car, because I'm always distracted by the fact he's had a sort of slightly dubious private plate put on it, and I just think, why?
You're not a fan of the private plate?
I'm not a fan of it.
Oh, I want G42 TOP, me.
I want to stop being your friend if you do. And I've noticed something. This is, I think, a condition of the modern car. Often, the designer, clearly on the clay model, has specified that the glass, usually on the tailgate, goes right to the extremities of the car, and it sort of matches up with a shut line. I mean, there's some beautiful examples of that where you get these incredible sort of bits of what must be an absolute fiddly business to make the car, because you've got to get it all lined up and stuff. But what happens then is the actual metalwork that has to be there to support the tailgate means that the glass sits on the outside, gorgeous and flush and sophisticated. But then you look at it and you realise there's a horrible gopping swathe of black
Holding it together, yeah.
So the actual glass area, when you look in the rearview mirror, is about the size of the sole of your shoe. It's all, but it also looks really ugly. And if you have a look, next time you're following a new shape Fiat Bravo, just have a look and look how much of what is superficially glass area on the outside is actually just blacked in to cover metalwork and gubbins underneath. It's really ugly.
Wasn't the Cinquecento one of the previous to the Seicento, that one, was one of the first cars to do that in recent times, to give the appearance of a much bigger rear window than it actually has.
Yeah, but that was kind of okay, because what it did was it just dipped down, and what they've done is they put the windscreen wiper within it, and it looked quite elegant. And I always thought they should have just taken it right down, made the whole back end look like glass, and then put the number plate within it. I thought it looked really groovy, really Italian, really stylish, and you could have sort of backlit it as well. But obviously that car would cost about 47p, so they could never do that. But it's a terrible thing, and there's a lot of cars do it, an awful lot of cars. I mean, look at a Range Rover Sport, the windscreen of a Range Rover Sport, because the dashboard is higher than the base of the windscreen. So what actually is glass going down to where the wipers sit, but then there's about 6 inches of black. And once you've noticed it, you can't stop noticing it. It's just really ugly.
You see, this is where we need to take a leaf out of a Star Trek book and use transparent aluminium.
Oh, that's right. As invented by a guy who worked in a factory in San Francisco in 19, whenever it was.
I've never watched an episode of Star Trek in my life.
Transparent. This was one of the movies.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
Well, you are the Star Trek expert, so you should explain.
They come back in time from the 23rd century to save a pair of humpback whales. It's in the movie The Voyage Home. And, of course, they have to build something to retain these whales in, to fit it inside the Klingon bird of prey that they've borrowed to take it back to the 23rd century. So Scotty sits on a computer and invents, he brings back the molecular pattern for transparent aluminium from the 23rd century, and so this guy in the 20th century
I just want to recap, there is no such thing as transparent aluminium.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well,
oh man, because theoretically then you could have an entirely transparent Land Rover.
Nice.
I was reading about how a defence research laboratory are developing, I don't think it's exactly transparent aluminium, but it's particularly tough, transparent material for armoured glass in tanks and armoured personnel carriers and that kind of thing. But the bigger question, you've never seen a single episode of Star Trek? How is that possible?
I just haven't. I don't know.
That is not possible.
I don't like.
I'm dumbfounded.
Richard, you've come to the wrong house.
I know. I was going to say I don't like space, but I do like space. I actually am fascinated by space.
That's the thing, you're a bit of a geek. And,
you two are my go-to guys for space stuff. I don't have a question about space. I was going to ring up Gareth and go, Gareth, how does space work? and he tells me in words of one syllable, because I'm an idiot. But I've never seen, I promise you, I've seen bits of. I know the characters. I know Mr. Spock, not Dr. Spock. He's a child psychologist. I know that, and I know Captain Kirk, the Shat, and I know. And I remember when we did that London Grand Prix thing, and we were in the S-Max, and Gareth was playing me William Shatner's album, which actually turned out to be quite upsetting in its own right. Lots of songs about his dead son or something. It was really weird. I mean, a dead wife.
If you would never ever watch TV, it'd be untenable. You work in TV.
I know, but I haven't watched all TV. There's lots of TV I've never seen. I've never seen an episode of Sex and the City.
You cannot sort of have a passing familiarity with TV.
That's the thing, but I know because it's so much in popular culture. I know a lot about Star Trek without ever having seen it. It's like I know a lot about space, but I've never been there.
I guess that's the Renault Megane Coupe. Do you remember when I was talking about a new car?
I thought that was last year.
I had my conversation. Can I just say two things about the Renault Megane Coupe?
Is it any good? Because I was wanting to ask you this. Is it any good?
Yes, the ride on the hatch is really nice.
Yep.
The ride on the coupe is a bit too stiff, I think. The coupe looks great, drives all right, nice electric steering. The engine isn't what it should be. It should be a lot better than it is, that engine, for 180 brake horsepower, or 200, whatever it is. It certainly didn't flipping feel like it. But the hatch was really quite a nice drive, apart from the rubbish gearbox, which was horrid. But it was a really nice drive, and the car is bland, but it's not as bland as you think it's going to be. It's reasonably fresh.
Okay, let's work it up the top three. That or a Golf?
I haven't driven the new Golf, but in terms of styling, I would choose the Megane Coupe over a Golf 3-door.
That or a Focus?
I'd take a Focus. But there is no Focus that's as coupe looking as that. I think they're going to sell a lot of the coupes.
The old Megane coupe did,
did really well. It was a great car. And you wait until there's a new Megane Renault Sport version. That's going to be.
I just remembered something that I forgot to mention before, but I have also driven a Renault Megane recently.
Yeah, which one?
You remember I was blathering on the previous show about how I'd been to France and I'd driven some cars up a mountain and I couldn't say what they were.
Oh, yeah.
Evo Car of the Year, but the Evo Car of the Year issue is out now.
Have you driven an R26?
R26R.
Oh.
Now, here's what happened. Turned up at the place. I went down to near Marseille, I think. And next morning we got up and there's a car park full of beautiful supercars and things. And then there's a Megane. And I got down a bit late, and I went, okay, right, so what am I driving? So I went, Megane's free. And I thought, oh, well, thanks very much. Very much indeed. And I got in. Now, of course, first of all, I don't know whether you've seen this Megane R26R. Go and look it up if you haven't, because it looks preposterous. In fact, the press pictures are worse than the car I actually drove, because the press pictures, I think a lot of them have got red wheels. Unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. Just no need. Really. Unless it's a rally car, and even then, no need. It's got a carbon fibre bonnet. Not really anything, particularly in the Megane, because it sits sort of within,
it's a small piece,
awful. Stickers all over it, right? It's got plexiglass back side windows and a plexiglass rear window.
I didn't know that.
Now, what happens is if you've got a group of blokes and you're all going, oh, it's got plexiglass. Has it? Everyone walks up and pokes it, so you end up with big smudges all over your windows, and there's no back wiper, so you can't get rid of the ones on the back. It's got a proper cage? Racing, it's got a red roll cage in the back with no back seats. I mean, come on, that's just
Well, they've got a bit of a history of doing this. Do you remember the old Renault 5 Turbo?
Well, that's fine, the engine was in the middle.
Yeah, but it was a bonkers car.
You get in, it's got a very, very buckety bucket seat. It's like sitting in a bucket. And a full harness. So... now, I've driven enough cars with harnesses that I've remembered not to make the schoolboy error of putting the harness on and realising you left the door open. You can't reach. So I avoided that one. Put the harness on. My clackers are being forced back into my body cavity by the strap that comes up through your, knackerage area.
That's a French term, clackers, isn't it? Well, mon claquer.
I think it's le claquer. They've got to trundle through a town and through some sort of urban areas, and it's got no radio. So, there's nothing to do. I was just humming to myself. Very noisy as well, because you take the back seats and the boot trimming out of a car, a normal hatchback with a monocoque, and you realise...
Empty vessels make the most noise.
Exactly.
Well, they may have
I'm speaking now. I think that proves it. So... I was just thinking, well, this is a silly car. This is a very silly car, and just embarrassingly silly as well.
But
we got onto the foothills of the mountain. Now I'm following, and I know this sounds catastrophically twerpish that I'm saying this now, but I was following a Lamborghini Gallardo, Porsche 911 GT2, and an Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and the road was clear. And the cars were being driven in front of me by some proper men, helmsmiths, the magazine road testers, and they all know how to drive. And I've ridden with all of them. They have that cool, calm confidence like racing drivers do. They never show off. They're just good drivers, and they can properly step up the pace. So they're off. And I thought, okay, I'll give this thing a go. And we're going up, and I was thinking, okay, well, they're disappearing on the straights. They get to the corners, and I'm keeping up, and I'm turning in. And I was thinking,
it shouldn't be this easy.
This car is preposterous. It has almost infinite grip. I swear, if you can get that car to understeer, then
you're doing it.
You're going to crash. That's it. You're going to crash because you're doing like 150. And I kept up with them all the way, and I got to the top of the mountain. And I was like, they all got Lamborghinis ticking and going bing, 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 and turn it off. And I said, were you not trying? And they went, well, yeah, you were giving it so much. But I was keeping up with you in a Renault Megane, and I'm not any great driver. But it's just, I mean, honestly, everything about it. The engine pulls like crazy. Now, here's an interesting thing as well. The chassis is sublime. I have never driven a front-wheel drive car with that much grip. But in some ways, a preposterous amount of grip can be sometimes a little bit boring, maybe. It's almost too much. But somehow this car is still fun. And I stopped trying to deconstruct it about what was good about it, because it was just basically sort of everything. It's like trying to pick apart Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. Why is that a great song?
It's just great.
Just don't dissect it, just enjoy it.
You're not alone in saying this.
Unbelievably
Many of the people I was with on this Renault trip to drive these cars were saying that they've been driving the R26R as well, and that it was just the greatest thing they'd driven in recent times. And they were all going, when are we going to have the new Renault Megane Coupe R20R version? And I tell you what, I look forward to that one. But for the time being, I've got to do with those. Guys, we're out of time. Richard, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Zog, say the same goodbye.
The same goodbye.
And I'm going to say a slightly different goodbye. A slightly different goodbye. Goodbye.
Contact the show on speed at garethjones.tv. Get lyrics, pictures and more information from www.garethjones.tv or subscribe for free at the iTunes Store. Gareth Jones On Speed is made by Whizbang.